I was born in Redlands, California, because that's where my father happened to be stationed courtesy of the United States Army at the end of World War II. The family moved back to Columbus, Ohio, which had been home base, and I grew up in Columbus and went to The Ohio State University. I'm a serious Buckeye and a crazy Ohio State football fan. Came to Washington after graduating to end up working at the Cable Television Association, NCTA, just as cable was taking off. And then I left NCTA, and then I ended up being part of a group that won a cellular license, an RSA, WSA, and that was my first introduction to wireless. Since many of the people in the early days of wireless were also people who had been in the early days of cable, hey, why don't you come over and run CTIA? And so for a dozen years thereafter, I did. One of the things that we did early on after I came to CTIA was the legislation that created the auctions. That did two things. One, it brought wireless into the federal regulatory scheme, which they never had been before. And two, it created the auction structure that has operated since then. So there were multiple things that were happening that shaped the industry. The first and continuing was the standards fight. You know, there's the TDMA groups and then the CDMA groups, and those were painful days, and it was a religious war. And I think one of the things that allowed the United States to then leapfrog into leadership in next generation services is that the government didn't come in and standardize things. And that fight between TDMA and CDMA made each other stronger. And TDMA became GSM, and then CDMA and GSM came together in WCDMA, which is the basis for 4G, and we move on from there. The exciting thing about what was happening in wireless was that the industry was putting the puzzle together without the benefit of being able to see the picture on the top of the box. Okay? And then the cancer scare. After a CNN program on the Larry King Show, in which a fellow whose wife had just tragically died of brain cancer and who thought her brain cancer had been caused by her cell phone usage, I think stocks fell like 40% the next day or something like this. We got the executive committee of CTIA on the phone, and I said, guys, I'm calling a press conference for this afternoon in which we're going to say that the industry is putting together a blue ribbon research panel. And here's the thing that was really terrific about the leadership of CTIA. They were 100% behind this early on. So we did it. It's been 25 years or so since then. The overwhelming conclusion of scientific evidence is there isn't a cause and effect relationship. Kudos to the industry for their willingness to step up and not do the traditional kind of stonewalling. So I pick up the phone one day, and the voice on the other end of the phone says, Tom, this is Barack Obama, and I'm told that I'm supposed to talk to you about technology. And he was then a freshman senator. I became a fan of Barack Obama's. I did a bunch of other things going out and campaigning for him. This was August 2008. We're putting together a transition team, and so we began assembling experts in the various ages. We had some really interesting issues, as you can imagine, in that science, technology, space, and the arts. And so, for instance, the digital television transition, that opened up all kinds of new spectrum for wireless. We then went to work to help the transfer from analog to digital because of the fact that today nobody ever talks about the digital transition, the DTV transition. It was a success. And then in the second administration, I get a call one day. Well, you'd be surprised what the president was just saying about you this afternoon. He wants you to be chairman of the FCC. And let's do it. When I was before the Commerce Committee for my confirmation hearing, I said, when I was an advocate for the wireless industry and the cable industry, they were my clients. I was their advocate. If I'm confirmed, my client's going to be United States consumers, the citizens of the United States. And I want to be the best possible advocate I can be for them. My mantra is going to be competition, competition, competition. I've just been incredibly fortunate to have been at the center of two industries on the cusp of their development into industries of significant national and economic relevance. We're living at this incredibly powerful time, but this is a transitional period in history, a transformational period. Everything is computing and collecting and connecting. That now brings us to a whole new set of challenges.